coming into profits. Actually, this is going to be our last one for the summer season. We're going to take a minor break and then we'll be back with some more. And I'm so excited today because I have my amazing guest, the branding and web designer, Maria, here to answer all your questions about a brand identity and messaging and all that lovely stuff. And guys, I am in the tail end of a cold, so voice is kind of Hopefully don't sneeze or cough on you. Thanks God for virtual screens, right? And if you're here, let us know where you're coming in from. And we'd love to know just that you're here in general, because we'll talk to each other. We don't care, but we'd love to include you too. So let us know where you're at and all that lovely stuff. I got you on both screens in case Restream's not showing us your comments. And if you don't know Miss Maria, she is an award-winning brand designer, brand strategist. I mean, I'm always loving her branding tips. I see them on Facebook and LinkedIn. Yes, we're connected, I think, just about everywhere. And she's worked for corporate agencies, even Fortune 500 companies in the past, too. So, Maria, what's something you're fun about you that you'd like to share with everybody?
You put the introvert on the spot. Something
I know, I'm good at this.
Fun about me is I'm probably the most boring person because I'm a recluse. I love to go on hikes in nature and get out into nature. And I love the ocean, so I'll always go to the ocean, but I'm not a very good swimmer. So I will always stay closer to the shore. But I love things that give me peace and serenity. So reading, Audible, being in nature, hiking, all of those wonderful things. Whether you consider that fun, I don't know, but here we are.
That's where I chills out in nature. And you're always posting pretty videos too, which I get to watch, which is even better. So if I can't get my fix out there, I would just watch your videos.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, tell me, how'd you get into branding? I mean, being an introvert and things like that, what drew you into branding, which is one of the things that, of course, pretty much represents us all and, our identity.
Yes. So as you mentioned, I did work, went to school, got my degree, went, corporate agencies, all the big and large ad agencies out there, and got laid off from my last position. I had 2 kids home, and I was like, ooh, okay, I have half of my pay because they were in daycare full time. How can we do this? So from there, I started freelancing, and I actually never looked back. So it's been 14 years now. I've been almost 25 years in the industry. So, but 14 years now. And so when I started freelancing, people would come to me saying, okay, can you create this brochure? Can you create, this type of signage? Can you do all of these things? And then I'm like, okay, cool. What's your logo? What are your colors? What are your fonts? Zero idea. Who are we creating this for? What's the bigger picture? What's the call to action? Because I realized I'm a very, and again, not really much to share. So then I saw this huge gap for the small business owners. And I was like, I need to help them fill this. With the same caliber I help those big companies, I need to help these small companies out. And we start with strategy first, and then dive into the visual second and implementation third. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And it's pivoted and ebbed and flat and where my clients are at, but it's kind of been this for a while now.
Yeah, and I mean those foundational pieces are so important. I mean, that's even where in the marketing and things like that, I even start there, because you don't have those foundations right from the start, things aren't going to go well. So that's where you come into play, helping them as well. And just so we know, let's say hi to Kendra and David and Stephanie. We've got Nova Scotia in the house, and Portugal, and upstate New York.
Brilliant. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey guys, how are you with your branding, your messaging and identity? Are you feeling good about it? Are you feeling like you're coming through as the real you, what you're showing out there and showcasing? Let us know in the comments about that while we're continuing talking here. But yeah, so foundational pieces. I think this is probably one of the biggest pieces people miss, and that comes back to identity and messaging. So you always start there. I know I start there. And I don't know about you, but for me, that starts with their goals, their ideal client, and those two things pretty much start out. What about you when it comes to narrowing down for that foundation?
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to brand strategy, it's so there's a lot of facets to brand strategy. We do dive into their future goals, understanding what that big picture is. We do dive into their audience, their competitive analysis, their positioning, their messaging, their core values. All of these facets, if you think of your brand strategy, are like the gears and cogs in a clock and a watch, and all of them need to work in unison. And when one of those isn't working, the rest can't turn. So you got to really have these foundational pieces in check before you reach out and get those aligned clients. That's a really important piece of the puzzle.
It is, because if you don't know who you're talking to or who you're serving, then you're just going to be throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to attract everybody in, which we know that does not work.
Absolutely not.
We also have Kendall and Fatima joining us from Toronto and Atlanta. So getting a little crowd of people going over there. Guys, if you know, I'm looking at the other screen because I've also got the LinkedIn Live pulled up for the comments because Restream isn't showing us all of your comments. So
yes, I don't see.
So yeah, so this way we got you included in the conversation no matter what.
Brilliant.
So with a big part of this, all right, so we know understanding our audience and things like that is how we really get in and target our people, because otherwise you're not going to get the messaging right. And also, I noticed you have a thing where you analyze the competition, and I really attached in on that when you said that, because I know what a lot of people unfortunately do when they start analyzing the competitions, they also start comparing themselves. So how do we get in? We analyze them. We look at what's going on so that we can see, you know, the good stuff that's going on out there, but do it without comparing ourselves.
Yes. So one of the ways to position yourself is to definitely check out your competition. And anybody here who has felt imposter syndrome, definitely, you know, raise your virtual hand. I'm sure on both hands, because when you take a look at someone who's doing what you're doing and you feel like they're far more advanced than you or way ahead of you, then it's just like hard to not feel that way. But I invite my clients and I guide them to take a look at their competition 2 to 5, even 10 years from now, where they aspire to be. And what that does is it just kind of triggers and invigorates you to be like, oh, cool, someone is doing exactly what I want to be doing. And it's working and they're successful. So this means that I too can have the same success. The way we look at our competition and just showcasing it in a new light and realizing what a valuable tool and resource your competition can be, right? It can kind of point you into, like, you can see, oh, they're doing ABC, but you know what? I'd actually do it this way instead. I love that they're doing that, but this is how I would do it. So it kind of pushes you closer and closer to your method, your processes, the way that you uniquely do things. And it just highlights what is available to you when it comes to your competition as well.
That's that, you know, and I love that advice, because yes, imposter syndrome is real. I don't think any of us have never had that when we compare ourselves. But I love how you say go ahead. That way, for once, you know for a fact you're not comparing yourself to, you know, somebody you think might be in the same place. Instead of going ahead where you're aspiring to be, then you can get that inspiration. You can see what's possible, and then, like you said, find your sweet spots of what you want to do and be. And that takes the comparinitis out of it completely. So I think that's a pretty cool way of
Yes.
doing that. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Trying to cough on you here. But is there something else you would do when you're analyzing too to make sure that doesn't happen or that you're looking for?
So when it comes to positioning, it's always trying to find where you fit and where you stand. So you can take a really good look at the playing field. And a lot of times people will come to me and list their competition, who they think they are. But in reality, you need to take, again, always keeping those future goals in mind, where you aspire to be, and using them as your baseline, not where you're at right now. And what you can do is take a look at their processes and, how do they appear online? What colors, what fonts, what styles are they using? What are they being known for? That key piece that they're being known for. What are some gaps? Like, take a look at what's working and what's not working. So if they're failing in a certain way, maybe via customer service or, user experience, maybe that's where you can excel. So the competition highlights those little gaps that you can potentially fill and excel at. And that's how you can, kind of be ahead of the game when it comes to certain parts. So definitely diving deeper into your competition. But the key piece is knowing the audience that you want to speak to as well, to really pinpoint the competition you should be paying attention to as well.
That's a great point too. And I the finding the gaps so that you could fill them, or maybe offer something that they don't have, which will help you stand out. And as usual, we're always wanting to stand out online in our business in general, but I know online it becomes even more with so many of the same people doing what you're doing. And so if you can highlight, maybe latch in on one of those gaps you see your competitors doesn't have, then you're going to really stand out compared to everybody else. So love that aspect of that. But yeah, so Kendra says, it's constant work in progress, but definitely always getting better. And I have my foundation in place. So I'm loving that.
Yes,
Good
Kendra and
job.
I in the past foundation in place.
Oh, yes, Kendra, then you should have your foundation in place. We're not letting you off the hook, lady. So what do you feel like is the most important thing for getting in, diving in deep to it, and actually being able to craft a really powerful brand message? I mean, we've compared, we've looked at our competition. We know our foundation now. What are we doing to get into crafting that brand message that helps us stand out?
So this is a great question, because people, they tend to focus on their messaging, but not realizing when they come to me. So I know my audience, they usually say, oh, I have a messaging problem. But when I dive deeper into it, it's actually not a messaging problem. It's a target audience problem. So you have to start there first. So I highly recommend diving into your target audience, because they are the epicenter of your business. Without them, you have no one to sell to, no one to buy your products. You need them. So paying as close attention to your target audience as possible is necessary. So besides, I know we all filled out those ICAs. We know the demographics and psychographics. Sally, she lives in a 2-story home, has 2.5 kids, has a dog and a cat. And I've even received, Sally's got purple nails out there. And I said, that's great and all, but we're not Pepsi. We don't need to know these things, right? Like I think that's the way I break it down is there's corporate and high end and big business brands. But when you are a smaller business, unique things that you need to pay attention to, and that even the big businesses are paying attention to, besides the demographics and psychographics. And it's truly understanding, okay, I have a viable product and service. I know I've sold it, people have purchased it. It's working, it provides results. Who is that audience that could benefit from this the most, right? What are their pain points? And I know marketing likes to, hone in on those pain points, which you should know what they are. But I'm on the opposite end, where it's like, okay, what are the transformations that you can provide? What does that after look like? And can you paint that picture for them? That's the part that they need to connect with, them visualizing being successful, succeeding, having accomplished whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, while removing those constant blockers that are in their way. And when it comes to your product or service, keep in mind our target audience can be a huge field of people, right? Like there's lots of people who can use our
Yeah.
product or service. But when I to ideal, and the difference of focusing on your ideal audience is who are those true fits that light you up, that make you want to wake up on Monday and get to work, that follow your processes and love the way you do things and enjoy your, how you, the user experience and everything that you're providing. There's those people that that are the perfect fits. Analyze them, write down all the information you have and bring it down. It actually comes down to like a personality level. Like that's how deep like you have to take it, as opposed to scraping the surface with those ICAs. I invite you to fill it out a little bit differently. And here's one extra tip, if I can add, is I encourage my clients to create a non-ideal client avatar. Sometimes it's easier to share who's not a good fit, right? Like, oh, that person didn't follow my process. They delayed on payment. They really postponed the project from moving forward. How were they? What were the traits that were common amongst them? And having this non-ICA is very important, because especially when someone's a potential is dangling money in front of us, we tend to forget those flags. For some reason, they kind of like, oh, right? And it's very, what happens when you create the non-ICA, it pushes you much closer to who is the ideal fits and makes it much clearer for you. So when you have this, now we can speak to them clearly. Now we know what we got to say and who we're saying it to, and possibly the platforms and where we should focus our attention on.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Actually, I follow the same method for doing it with my clients as well. And you did mention that marketing tends to focus on pain points more, but I think that's the old way of marketing. The new marketing, modern marketing, focuses more on outcomes and transformations. And pain points, we do need to know the pain points. That you got to know what they got the problem with so you can help solve it. But I'm with you. I have my clients make a list too of all the traits that they don't want, they don't like, and everything else. Because, yeah, and like you said, sometimes it's easier to come from that point of view first, and then worry about, okay, who is ideal? Start taking out the list of who's not ideal, and then all of a sudden, ideal becomes easy. I found a lot of my clients find that much easier to start there than the other side of things, and then they can hone in on who the ideal is. And just a quick tip for everybody. I don't know if you're using this yet, Maria, but I took and entered all of my testimonials I used Google's Gemini. And I did a complete analysis, a breakdown. It was incredible. It pulled out all the words and what they were getting on the benefits. And so great way to use AI, guys, that is using your content to break down and figure out who your ideal client is, plus the wording they're using. So
that's
you
so
used AI
valid.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I love that, because it's true. When sometimes we can't toot our own horn, like we're eating a lot of humble pie, so it's hard for us to share what we're amazing at, and that really leads to messaging as well. Is own audience, your own customers will tell you if you ask them, so why did you choose me over the rest? People selected, why did you choose me? And they'll give you the exact reason why you're different than the rest, why they selected you. Maybe it's your process, your procedure, your personality, like, a whole bunch of things, but they'll give you the language to use and the reasons why you are different from the other.
Yeah, I mean, it makes such a difference. And like you said, I mean, we're the worst at bragging about ourselves. So let your clients say it for you.
Absolutely.
I do find that probably some of the most useful content you can use, is just go get it from them.
Yes, it's the easiest, least abrasive path to take.
Is there anything else we can get from using and analyzing our client testimonials and stuff like that to help us with our brand messaging that you found?
Yeah, so with our brand messaging, again, it's always keen to know as much as you can about your audience. So I always like doing market research. I love polling your audience, questioning them, have them fill out questionnaires. Some of them will even say they'll come on an interview with you and answer all of those questions that you need to really find like that golden thread to weave these ideal pieces together. But when it comes to your messaging, you have to think of what was the reason that your clients came to you in the first place. So, we have so many talents and skill sets, right? We're a Swiss Army knife. We can list everything. The key piece is especially when it comes to positioning, is what is the main piece? What is the main message you want to be known for that can be retained? I like to think of it as when there's an in search of post, when should someone drop your name down? Like, boom, I am the answer to that in search of post. When would be the ideal or optimal time to drop your name down? And with your audience, they provide this information to you, because then it kind of showcases and negates language when you're drafting your messaging, who we're creating it for, because now we truly understand, okay, they're in corporate, they're looking to start a new level in their business, and they're trying to pivot and expand or scale or grow. And we're knowing that they have all of these talents and all of these skill sets. They have 3 employees in place. Like, we can really fine tune where they are at and the phase that they're at and how you can potentially help them. And then you can call out to that particular level and phase. It doesn't have to be industry specific or target audience specific. It can be problem or state or phase they're at specific on how you can speak to them and catch them. So when it comes to the talents and skill set, we want to list the main thing that we're known for. So my question, I guess, to the audience is, like, how many of you feel confident in regards to the way you're sharing your message, right? Like, so like, 1 is my messaging is on point, it's clear and concise. And 1, 2, 3, and 3 is some good work still needs to be done here. I'd love to see your feedback on that one. If you think of the product or service that you provide, what is the one thing that will get them in the door, right? Because you need a way for them to connect with you, right? What is going to get them in the door?
Well, and you want to become that go-to expert. I mean, we've all seen it. I mean, I know you've seen it. You're on LinkedIn enough that you've seen enough headlines, and you'll see a headline and people have got like 8 things they do in the headline. And you're just like, okay, great. You're a Jack or Jill of all trades, but what are you really good at? I mean, what's your thing? And so a lot of people, just aren't there. And I mean, I can even say from personal experience, being a social media marketer and strategist and stuff, that it took me a little while to realize that conversation is what I excel at. And that was my niche area. And I've really only, even in the last year, adapted to that, because I'm damn good at doing social media marketing strategy, and marketing. But what was I so good at? And it was just, and I kept overlooking it because it was too freaking easy, guys. Most of the time, the thing you find easy is the thing. But for me, that felt too easy. So it was like I kept ignoring that. And it's like, it's got to be something else. It's got to be something else, And here it was, that was it. So I know how this goes.
No, it is true. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask how you found your specialty there, but go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, like, for me, I actually position myself just by adding an R and an E to the beginning of what I do, rebrand strategist. And what that means is, okay, so you have a brand in place, and you have something that you've already established, and now you need help at that next level just by adding an R and an E. That's how I kind of position myself, slightly different than the rest, because that's the zone of genius I love, because this is the main pivotal point in some business owners, that they're looking to get to that next level and they feel stuck and something's holding them back. That's where I partner with them on that journey and on the rebranding journey. And then they share their plethora of, I can do this, and they share their skill set and talents. And then I go in there, I'm like, ooh, this piece here, that's the magic. That's the piece that we're going to share. My clients have all the answers. They have them. It's just when you're too stuck in your head, and you're, this is you trying to stay above water and seeing that big picture. Someone from the outside, especially someone who's been doing this for a while, can come in and say, oh, I love the way you worded that, the way you said that. That is the magic. That's the piece that's going to get them in your door. And then when they come in, then you can share all the rest of your amazingness with them, right? But it's to get them in the door. How can you make referral partner easy? How can people dropping your name down easy? What is the sticky part? What's going to remain top of mind? What is that one main piece? That's what you kind of have to isolate. So it becomes easy. Like, just think of when someone asks, hey, what's a local specialty bake shop that's gluten-free? Can you pop one in your head immediately? Or a local plumber or a local realtor or lawyer? Yeah. You can easily pull that out of your brain, because your brain sticks things in compartments. Whether we want to or not, it goes into categories. And you want to be easily retained and extracted. And that's right. It's remaining top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's so important, because if you aren't that first person, minimum second person, they're thinking, oh, we want to be the first, we want to be number one, but you definitely want to be on that list, because otherwise that means you either haven't put yourself out there in a way to get that spot yet, or you aren't aware of your whatever your special thing is, enough to have done that. So we definitely want to do that. To answer to your question, Kendra said she was a number 2, by the way.
Perfect. and keep in mind, when I develop things with my clients, it's always thinking of the future vision. And as entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs with multiple passions, we're never going to stay in one little box and live here forever. Like, no one is going to do that. So the whole point of crafting a brand and crafting messaging and crafting a brand strategy is so that it ebbs and flows along with you. When you do it correctly, it's easily refined. So every step, every phase, you just refine it. We're not burning anything down ever. We're keeping that data and we're refining it.
Yeah, and I think that, that is so key to remind people, because I think a lot of people are scared to niche because they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck here forever. But in reality, this is about something that grows and changes, and it just goes with you. And whatever it is you're going to do, when you've done it in a way like this, that it can grow and change with you. And then you're not burning it down and starting over every single time. I mean, every now and then you might do that, obviously. I mean, sometimes that does happen, but for the most part, we don't. I started out back in the day originally just doing blog writing. And I hadn't even acknowledged yet all my marketing expertise by then. I've got over 30 years in marketing. And because from owning 5 businesses, I marketed them all, everything successfully, and I didn't realize it for so long. But I started out in content writing, then I went into business coaching, which I still do that part-time. I do that combination with my marketing strategy, but marketing is where my special skills were. It was that connection thing for me. So yeah, it's finding that, but realizing it was okay that I transitioned through all of that and everything too. So is anybody in our audience, have you done a complete change of direction, or have you just grown your business with you? What about you, Maria? Was it always branding from once you got out of work, or what did you do?
Like I said, I'm a textbook special case because I must love it, because I'm still doing it almost 25 years in. But who I serve, here's a little secret. I'm learning in my adult life that I probably have ADHD. So I was one of the people who hated selecting a niche, who hated selecting an industry or an audience that I needed to focus in and hone in on. When I know niching, the riches are in, I guess it rhymes with niches, but I say niches. But I've actually uncovered the multiple ways that you can niche down that doesn't have to be industry specific or target audience specific. There's so many ways that you can niche down. So I found that sweet spot of those that are scaling or growing or trying to get to that next level, that already have things established, But in that rebranding journey, they're pivoting their offers or pivoting their services or pivoting their messaging or audience that they want to reach. That's my specialty. That's who I love to work with and zone in on and help, because that's where we that brands that I want to create. Yes, it's an investment to work with me. So the brands I want to create, I want them to be long lasting. I want them to milk this for as long as they possibly can. So that's where, for me, the non-negotiables are knowing your core values and having those bold, audacious goals. Like, I want to be a TEDx speaker. I want to be an author. I want to, have employees, or I want to, whatever those dreams are. That's the brand that I can help them build. And that's where I've situated myself now. And I feel like that's a great space for me to be. And that's the customers that I've served 5 years ago are definitely not the clients that I'm serving today. So you do ebb and grow, and you do flow in different directions.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, because I started out helping beginning business owners and coaches, and it's not that I still won't work with them. They're not my specialty. My ideal client is ones who've been in business, 3 to 4 years or more, and they're really now we've gotten through all that beginner stuff, and now we're ready to get serious about our marketing and actually get us out there with a repeatable system that works. And so it's definitely been, a journey finding that. You probably know this, but Kendra said she had a big change recently in her business. So
yeah. Her accounting services to being a business coach and consultant, running that side of things. So it is a little bit different, but she's still, so the thing that I like to invite people is all the talents, everything you've done, and you mentioned it as well, Heidi, is that we have so many years of experience. Remember that any new venture you're taking, you're bringing 10 years, that 15 years, that 20 experience, you're bringing it to the table and you're serving that up to your clients. So I find a lot of the clients that I deal with aren't highlighting that back end because they're pivoting. They think it's year one. And I'm like, no, it's year 21. You have 20 years in the industry. This is year 21. We're just editing or changing our message. But that experience, that expertise, that's coming to the table with you. And that's something that I really love to highlight for my clients. It gives them an immediate confidence boost. So those bold aspirational goals don't seem so far anymore. There's now confidence to play at that level. And that's my goal is, let's look at your competition 2 to 5 years from now. Let's look at your messaging 2 to 5 years from now, and let's serve that up right now. And you're able to deliver that right now.
And that is such an important point because, even if you do the big change like Kendra did, and that is a big change to go from accounting to business coaching and stuff like that. But you're not starting over. And that's such an important point for everyone. I really want to highlight that because you couldn't do what you're doing with that new change if you didn't have the skills to do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be moving into that niche because you wouldn't even have the idea to begin with. So I love that you can remind them that they still have all this experience. So we're not starting from zero. We are an expert already. And sorry, apparently we've got a few horns blowing out there today, but excited traffic. But so that you're not starting over, which I think is so freaking empowering. And such a great reminder for everybody is that you still got all those years of experience behind you. I mean, I just realized with my birthday this year, I can now say 30 years in marketing.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And as before we wrap up too, you had mentioned some about designing visuals too. I know we've been talking about the message and the identities, and visual identity is so important as well. So I want to make sure we hit that topic a little bit before we get out of here for today. So talk about how our visuals match us. They represent us.
So another key piece to positioning. So we talked about target audience, we talked about competition, we talked about messaging. your visuals play an important role in this one, because if you were to think of visiting a website, you're searching for XYZ and you get to the website and one is flowing, it's inviting, it's warm, it's got everything on display, it makes sense, you know exactly the call to action and where to go, and another is just like, I don't know where to click first, it looks, you know, mismatched and not professional and all of those things, that impacts our decision on who we choose. Whether you like to admit it or not, visuals play a big role. Like I don't drink wine, weird thing to say, but I don't drink wine, but I gift wine. And how I gift wine is by the label. Like you might think it's the weirdest thing, but if it has a really cool and unique label, it draws me in. So packaging plays a role on how you purchase things too. So it's all psychologically connected. And colors have meanings, and they represent, you know, reds and, you know, all the different colors, they represent different pieces of your brand. So understanding the industry standards, understanding color theories, knowing what the rules are, but then someone like me can kind of break them. You have to know the rules before you can break them. That's rule number one. Because like if I'm going to craft a for a particular industry and everybody's using blues and greens, well, this is the other competitive analysis I do. I take a look at all the brands and what their visuals look like, how their websites appear, and all of these things. And then for me, it's like if everybody's flowing and they're using the same type of symbol and the same color, well, we want to fit in the category, but we don't want to blend in. So, hey, we're actually going to do this instead, and it still fits professional, but definitely stands out from the crowd. And that's kind of the sweet spot you want to hit. You don't want to be so far off that you don't feel like you belong in the category, but you want to make sure that you fit in the category and stand out. And, you know, we can use certain things like, you know, different fonts, you know, serif fonts are classic and clean and allude to professionalism. Sans serif are timeless and slightly modern. Script fonts can, you know, feel inviting and some personality, but I advise you to use them sparingly or as an accent and make sure they're I will always prefer the side on the caution of legibility and, you know, accessibility versus it looking pretty, right? Like it always has to be functional at the end. So it's that space where when you feel that your brand isn't representing the 30 years that you have behind you and it's not appearing professional and selling you short, that's when you should take a look at rebranding and take a look if you need to do some work there, because, you know, your clients are noticing, people will know, potentials are noticing, and they aren't committing or converting the way you'd like them to.
It's so true. And I mean, it's like, unfortunately, and yes, I'm calling coaches out on this one, but coaches' websites, they all look the same. I'm sorry, most of them look the same. I won't say all, because obviously there's the ones that stand out, but the majority of them, they all look like they use the same freaking template fonts and pretty much the same colors. It's almost like the yoga industry too. I mean, we can call out the lotus flowers and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we've seen it a million and one times. So you want to stand out, you've got to get out of that box.
It definitely has to be scaling, and you're pivoting and you're growing. That's the optimal time to create something curated for you, and more so your ideal audience. Make it work for them and attract them.
Yeah, and I know that feeling because I'm in the middle of a rebrand right now too. So it's everything's changing. But yeah, so it's really, really amazing though. And one thing I like to remind people too, though, is also on the visual side of things. Our eyes are drawn to the visuals first before we even start computing on words or anything else. So if your visuals aren't doing that, they aren't stopping to scroll basically, then you're not going to stand out, which is another big reason to make sure your visuals A, match you, but B, also stand out from everybody else. So.
The other benefit too is when I land on your social media pages or your website or on or offline in your marketing collateral, the key piece is cohesiveness. And when you rebrand and you have your colors, your fonts, your styles, the imagery that you're portraying, when I know I've landed on the same pages across the board, that cohesiveness is very evident. I can see the same colors, I can see the same fonts. You look put together, you look invested in your business. Whereas a lot of the times you can appear quite disjointed if it's the same, different imagery and different graphics and different everything. And the one thing I can add is tweaking your brand is the death of your brand. So the more you're changing up your colors, your fonts, your messaging, you know, all of these things. If you're confused, can you imagine the audience trying to read this or grasp this on the other end? So it's when you have that clarity and you can come across cohesive and your messaging, you're repeating it nonstop, consistently. That was one of the things. Positioning, consistency is your friend. So doing
Always.
like if you're tweaking something, give it 4 to 6 months, let it live there a little bit and see how it goes, and then refine it again. If you're changing it daily or weekly or making edits or not sure the content is right, that's because the foundation isn't solid. If you're constantly tweaking, editing, you got to get back, push pause and take a step back, and let's dive into your foundation once again.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, we say consistency a lot, but that's because it is so freaking important to everything you do. Your marketing, the tactics you use, your branding, what you're going to use there. I mean, you're not recognizable if you aren't staying consistent to your message and what you're doing, all of this kind of stuff. So you're not going to stand out. I had a client a couple of years ago, and every 2 weeks she literally against advice would switch up her marketing tactics, and it didn't work. No surprise. And I mean, just like with branding and messaging, and it's just not going to work that way. So
Absolutely,
you got to commit.
It's scary, but the thing is, it's the opposite holds true. Like you feel like you're pigeonholing, or the FOMO, a fear of missing out a lot of the time on clients and things like that. But the opposite reigns true. When you create focus and you have clarity and you have consistency with your brand, it is just so much easier to do every single step down the line. Everything is just like the weight has been lifted and you are focused and you're able to create content easily. You're able to share easily. You're able to create connection, deeper connection with your audience easily. Brand strategy is such an important piece that you can't really skip over. I know at the beginning we scraped the surface, but when you're trying to get the next level, you cannot skip over this one. It needs to push pause, and we need to dive deeper into it.
I 100% agree, because foundation is a part of the foundation. You don't have the foundation right, it's going to be rocky and it is going to fall at some point and cave in on you. But also, it's like one thing I always remind my clients, because and I'm sure you'll resonate with this as well. If you aren't sounding like a broken record on your consistency, if you aren't getting sick of it, then you probably haven't been consistent enough.
I'd like to add to that, because that's such a valid point, is that we will tire of our message well before our audience has ever even seen it, heard it, liked it. And an example I can share, this is going back to my corporate days when I first did a big, huge ad campaign, and it was plastered all across the streets of Toronto, on the billboards, the bus shelters, all the signage. I was like, oh my God, there it is. And as I'm walking to work to go to the agency every day, I'm like, yay, there it is. And then day 3, I'm like, oh, and then day 10, I'm like, oh, and then day 30, I'm like, oh my God. And then I was like, so do you think people are tired of seeing this right now? Like, do you think, and then my creative director at the time, he had wise words, and he said that. He said, they haven't even seen it yet. You've seen this because we've been working on this for 6 months prior to it actually being launched. So that's why it's in your head and you've seen it every tired of it, because 6 months prior to, we were building it, crafting it, creating it, perfecting it, and now it's live. The same holds true for your own message, for your own graphics, for your own visuals. Your audience needs to see it on repeat, and just share it as much as you potentially can, because that is the key to that's the only thing we have when it comes to positioning, really, is the consistency. That's the only thing we have to fight against the bigger guys, is us holding true to our brand promise and showing up consistently to the best of our ability, and for that message being heard on repeat. And that's where the snowball starts to take effect. That's when oh, I know someone who does that, because you start to become remembered. Absolutely.
Well, and once again, we're back to that's how that makes you the go-to expert, because you're recognizable. At the end of the day, if you haven't shared the message enough or whatever, then nobody can actually recognize you. So you're not the go-to expert, which is where consistency comes into play. And Stephanie here, she receives lots of compliments about her logo and colors, because it does stand out more than the typical yoga colors and logos. Yes, Stephanie, yours does stand out. Not calling out the yoga industry or coaches on that, but it is true. A lot of them look the same. So tell us about, it was time to wrap up here. Everyone, if you've got questions for Maria or I, drop them in the comments. There's a little bit of lag, so go ahead and get those in while we tell you real quick about the gift Maria got you. It's a guide and a checklist for logo design. Tell them why they should download that.
So I'll give you my little secret. It's because I was tiring of having to be the bearer of bad news, to tell people your logo really isn't working. And the thing is, people take it so deep and they're so serious about it, and rightfully so. They're attached to it. So I created a free guide and checklist to do the dirty work for me. So what it does is there's 6 easy steps. And what it does is just highlights the effectiveness of your logo. Like it goes through the fonts, through the visuals, and as you go through, give yourself a score, and then you can see how your logo fares and how well it is at attracting your ideal audience. And if it needs work, then hey, let's have a chat. But that free guide is, I think Heidi said she'll post it here, but it's also on my website at platusicdesign.com. Right on the footer, you can sign up and receive that for you.
Oh, awesome. Yes, and it's an amazing guide and checklist to everyone. As always, I've checked things out, so get it. You can see how your logo is stacking up. Let the guide and the checklist do the dirty work.
Yes.
For sure. Okay, in that case, Maria, I'm going to keep an eye out for more if we have any questions or comments over here. But what is one thing you want everybody to take away from this today, no matter what?
So again, if I can repeat, being consistent is going to be your best friend. Realize that the people, when you do your competitive analysis and you check out those who are doing what you want to be doing, and you realize their credentials and their accolades, and they don't even have the experience or the intel or the insight or the knowledge base that you have, and yet they're killing it. And why is that? The only thing is because they're better at marketing than you are. They're better at marketing than you are. So the way that you can combat that is to be consistent, have that proper foundation, show up as much as you possibly can. Consistently, 2 different things. You don't have to bleed your life away to show up and compete with that. But as long as you're consistent with your message and what you do, who you help, and how you help them, as often as you can with integrity, that is your saving grace. That is how you can position yourself to stand up against the others that are out there.
Yeah, such a great thing to leave them with. I mean, it does. At the end of the day, it comes back to consistency. Looks like we've answered their questions, or they're going to drop them in the comments later for us. So,
okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing today. Lovely conversation, so much gold in here. And thank you to our amazing audience for joining us. And just as a reminder to everyone, we will be back. We're going to actually stream some of our most popular shows through July and part of August. And then we're going to be back with brand new guests starting in the early fall. And looking forward to seeing you. Great show to wrap us up with this season for the first half of the year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Heidi, for having me, for having me share today, and being my first LinkedIn Live. So thank you for being my first, everyone.
He wasn't it? I have to ask, you got lucky because, last week, Restream kept dumping me out. So poor Nikki got to go solo. Were you prepared just in case? Because we gave you the heads up.
So if I can share, I've done lots of lives in my Facebook community, on Instagram, and I've hosted workshops and paid, coaching community. So I'm not like new to this, but LinkedIn, this is my first LinkedIn Live, and thank you for being really easy on me, everyone. So I appreciate that. And if anybody has questions for me, I'm on LinkedIn. Drop them. Go in my inbox. I'm an all-in personality. I'm not a gatekeeper. Share your questions. I'm happy to answer them for you.
Yeah. So hashtag replay, tag us if you're catching this after the show, and we're going to be dropping the links to Maria's gift for you guys in the comments right after, as well as replay links for everybody who could not make it live today and said they wanted to be here. And it's also on YouTube if you guys don't want to watch it on LinkedIn again. It's on both there. But thank you so much, and thank you so much for our first full season on LinkedIn Lives. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.